So hello everybody, and thank you for joining. My name is Natalia, and I manage Beetroot Academy in Stockholm. And today's webinar is hosted by Beetroot and Beetroot Academy. If you haven't heard about us, Beetroot is a Swedish-Ukrainian IT company, which specializes in building teams of developers and designers to work for international clients. And Beetroot Academy is a Swedish-Ukrainian IT school that helps people take their career to the next level. We teach intensive IT courses in a friendly atmosphere where no one is left behind. As a part of our international expansion, this spring we opened Beetroot Academy in Sweden and Kosovo. In our schools, we offer both online and offline courses in web development, design, IT management, and much more. If you need any additional information, please feel free to contact me after the webinar. And before we start, I would like to mention some technical moments. Please turn off your audio and video during the webinar. All questions you can ask in the chat. In the very end, we will have a Q&A session. So the speaker will try to answer your questions. And if you have some troubles with the video, please rejoin or send me a message and I will try to help you. So that's all from my side. Thank you for your attention. And Rupin, the audience is yours now. Let me start your video.
Right, so welcome to this lunch webinar on project management in IT. I'll be talking about from the very basics to a little bit more in detail as well, so that is there just a question? Are you able to see the slides? Is it better now? Okay, that's good. Right, sorry about that. This is these things happen in technology. That's why you need project management. So this is a perfect example of why you need it. So I'll be talking about the basics as well as a little bit more detail so that you can apply some of these in your project management life. So a bit about me. Why am I giving this webinar? I'm not an expert in project management, but I have a lot of expertise, and that comes from 20 years-ish experience in consulting, in leadership, and in project management. I have worked in several countries, led many large projects in various technologies and many complex projects as well. I hold a PhD as well in business administration from Stockholm School of Economics. So that helps in decision making, it helps in leadership, and it has helped me management as well. I've also taught master's courses in project management in university. So I hope some of my expertise I can share, and if you can take something away from it, that would be just a bonus. So let's start. So one question that sometimes people ask is project management still relevant? Now, it is, because a lot of companies, they actually invest in project management as a competency center or as a center of excellence, and they are always searching for something that helps them remain competitive or to give them some advantage. And project management is one such specific capability that helps organizations achieve this. Project management helps deliver the right product, but it also helps deliver the product right. So it is a function that allows validation and verification services. Project management will allow you to, it brings together people to collaborate and to cooperate to achieve a common goal. So it gives you leadership, it gives you direction, it gives the company some certain focus, right? And you also have like academic programs. You have PhDs in project management, so you get very good academic theory that comes out and that can be applied to the industry. So it is a very exciting field, and it's always changing because you get new projects to handle. So I think IT project management is a very important function in any organization. And this webinar, I hope it will give you certain tools that maybe you can use, it will help you evaluate also what may constitute a good project, and it might increase your chances of running a project successfully with some of the tools that you might see here. So let's go into it a bit more. So just the most basic, what is IT project management? So, I mean, there are so many definitions, but the easiest way is it is a process. It is the controlling of processes, resources, activities that are specifically related to IT projects. And IT projects are those which change or impact directly IT infrastructure and information systems only. So any project that you are doing that will change IT infrastructure and or information system from an old state to a newer or a modified state is an IT project. So therefore, IT project managers are those people who are responsible for delivering this change. So they would be responsible for the end-to-end from conception to the completion. So they're responsible for idea creation, ideation, planning, budgeting, administration, and the actual delivery of the project, and so on and so forth. So these are the most basic things that the absolute basic definitions of that are going to be helpful when you're studying or doing project management. Now that you have some idea of what it is, there are certain basic things that every project manager in IT as well. This is generic, but it is also applicable to IT. Now, you will probably have to do more activities, but these are the basic minimum that you require for trying to run a successful project. Now, the first thing is you need to identify all those people who have a vested interest in the success of your project. So these are your stakeholders, and it is important to know who all these people are, because they would be the ones who have the expectations from your project. So they would be the project sponsor, they could be the customer, the vendor, the end user, internal teams as well. So you need to meet them, understand who they are, what they're expecting out of the project, because stakeholder management is one of the most important skills you will have, you require, and oftentimes how you manage your stakeholders will result in whether you have done a good job or not. And many problems can be resolved by a proper stakeholder mechanism, management mechanism, which would imply that you need to know their expectations first as well. So that is very important. Goal setting and setting our expectations. So we need to know why we are doing the project, what are the objectives, and what are we trying to achieve? What are the outcomes? What are the goals that are expected? End goals as well, and also interim goals, right? So this has to be set. I mean, you don't have to have it in detail, but you should have some kind of idea that these are what we're going to do. But then we need a sort of a deliverables or some kind of list of activities, say, a very high level, depends on the type of project you have, because in some projects you don't know what activities you have, but you should have some kind of idea of what kind of tasks you need, who is doing what, what kind of time and money do you have. So a very high level activities list, estimations, and roles and responsibilities will help you manage your project through the entire life cycle. So then you would also need something like a schedule, so timelines and your deliverables, dependencies, and milestones as well. So this would provide like a roadmap of where you are and where you are going to go. So this is also an important document. Now, they can be in detailed form or they can be quite high level. It depends on what type of project you are involved with. Problem and risk management, unfortunately, no matter how good your project is or your plan is, you will always have issues. You will always have some kind of risk. So this has to be managed, and you need to have some kind of strategy so that you are aware that if these happen, these things happen, or if you encounter some kind of issues, what is your plan? And this also serves as a mechanism for reassuring your stakeholders that you have got your uncertainties covered. You have some kind of arrangement that might help mitigate your risk or solve issues, right? So this is an important artifact as well. And you then, of course, need some kind of a project plan. It doesn't have to be very detailed, but it is something like a dashboard that will tell you the status of the project, and it is also used to as a collaboration and a communication tool with everybody involved. So for the stakeholders, this is an important document, and you can also use it for negotiation during your project. So these are the basic minimum things that you would need to run a good project. You would probably have to do a lot more things, but you can't manage without these basic activities, right? So now that you have this, let's dig a little bit deeper. Now, one of the things that I have done myself in my earlier days was I used to accept all the projects, right, as a manager. Now, this is may not be right because not everything is would make a good project. So how do you know? Is there a way that you can use? Are there any criteria that you can use to see what constitutes a good project? You can apply certain filters, certain conditions to decide. For example, if you hear some stories, some ideas you have some problems that you think can be solved, you make a list of all these stories or ideas and evaluate each of them for their technical feasibility and their business viability, which means that can we solve this or can we implement this story with what we have in our organization, which is the technical feasibility, and can we monetize it in some way? Can we make some money? So that is the business viability side. So if you get good answers for both these, then you have some opportunities. You have a project opportunity. So you have filtered down your list of stories to a few project opportunities, but you still don't have a project because these are still opportunities. So you are now in the opportunity space, but now you go into the project selection space. So you take each of these opportunities and apply some further filters. This is a little bit more granular. So you take each opportunity and see, try to evaluate if the organization is happy to have this opportunity under its umbrella of existing projects or its portfolio. Is it a match with the company's culture? Is it going to benefit, or is it in the right direction of where the company wants to go? Then apply like a resource, like check and see that do we have the skills and competence required to assess or to execute this opportunity? Are these skills available, or can they be acquired? And how critical are these skills? Are they expensive? Are they very rare? So again, if you get positive answers, then you have a good project now. So now you actually have a project. So you've gone from a list of just ideas, you've gone from the ideas to the opportunities, and then you have gone from the opportunity to the actual project. So now you have a project. So you have a mechanism by which you can kind of maybe increase your chances of getting a manageable project to implement. So that is one stage that you might have to go through. The next is for every project you have as an IT manager, you need to have some kind of framework that you have to establish before you actually start any work. And you would be obviously adjusting this as you go along. But some of these things have to be in place, or you have to have some kind of management around it, which will help you guide your project forward. So now you have to maybe decide on what kind of management style you want to apply throughout the project, what kind of delivery method, which is your actual software development lifecycle framework. You would need a layer of governance as well, which is your supporting processes, which are also extremely important, and they will help you make it a more, it will help you with making it a more easy and more helpful management of your IT project. And then you need a project metrics arrangement, which is a data collection and performance management function, which is also a method for you to check if you are adhering to what the customer asks for, if you are following your own internal standards and guidelines as well. So something like a basic project framework is required before and during your entire IT project management lifecycle. So these are some of the things. It's not all of them. These are just very basic things that you would need in place. So now, if you talk about management styles, right? You have a hard style and a soft style. These are diametrically opposite styles. A hard style is very quantitative. It's data-driven, numbers-driven. It is purely on problem solving. So say if you are in a very hierarchical company, or if your project is very numbers time driven, or it is very rigid and structured, you might need a harder style of management. So here it is very positivistic, and your focus is essentially on control, right? So it can be a bit exploitative because your objective is clearly defined. Maybe your scope is very clearly defined, so you know what to do, and you are probably bound by time or very strict budget and all that. So that it's a bit more micromanaged maybe. Then you have a softer style, which is quite the opposite. It is very qualitative. You search for context. You are not always, maybe you don't have a proper problem statement, so you're searching for an appropriate problem, so you are in a problem structuring mode. It could be in a company which is say a startup, or you are in a very creative project, right? So here you need to sort of collaborate maybe, so you're always searching for some kind of answer. So it's a more fluid style. So here your focus is essentially on learning rather than on control, right? So in the hard style, the project manager is seen as an expert, while in the softer style, the project manager is seen more as a facilitator. So depending on your IT project, it might be in a say R&D, or it might be in a more, I don't know, like a military project, an IT project in that kind of environment. So you have to sort of probably change in between these two styles, or you can sort of be very fluid. In some parts, you might have to be more controlling. In some parts, you might have to let go a little bit. So you have to see what kind of style is going to benefit the project the best, right? So this is a thing that you should have at the back of your mind. Now talking about the actual software delivery lifecycle. There are many in the market, but I'll just talk about two of the ones which are most widely used. The first is the waterfall model. Um, Now, I'm not very happy with the word, even though it's a very standard terminology. I'm not very happy with the word waterfall, because you can also have a waterfall that falls vertically down, right? It's not exactly that. I am happier with the word cascade, maybe, because that's how it is actually. But anyway, we'll go with waterfall. So this is a traditional life cycle, which is it's very structured, and it depends on the completion of the previous phase. So it starts with analyzing your requirements. You talk to the customer, you get all your requirements sorted out, and then once you have a major chunk of that done, only then can you go to the next stage of designing, which is then you work on your design documents, your functional, technical design, etc. Once you have that done, then you can actually go to your coding and so on and so forth. So this is in between two phases, you would have like an approval, which would be required from the customer. So they would have to sign it off, and so it's like a stage gate. So there is a dependency here on approval. So there is a dependency on your previous phases completion. So there might be some kind of time lag as well. So it's quite a strict process in terms of it's not very flexible. So you should probably have a good planning structure in place. So as you can see on the right, that triangle, which I think we call it as like an iron triangle, maybe, I think, I'm not sure. But anyway, so in this method, your scope is quite fixed, which is why you can plan so far ahead, right? So you don't change your scope. Usually, it's almost completely rigid, but you can change and you will probably change your schedule and resources. So your team and time are not fixed, but your scope is. So here, the waterfall method is a very predictive process, because you know the scope and you know the end goal. So you more or less know your direction, right? And it is very planned driven. So this is one of the methodologies, and then you estimate obviously on the team and the time, right? So this is your traditional method. Then you have another method called Agile, which is more flexible, it's more nimble, it's more iterative and sort of contextual rather than very rigid. So here you have again, this is one of the diagrams. I mean, there are several ways you can do this, but taking this, for example, you take a list of your requirements, you can prioritize them in order of urgency or importance, and then you take sort of subsets of those into several run cycles. So you do like short runs of all of them. So you're implementing often, and you're implementing small parts of it. So here you execute several run cycles. So your scope can change, but each of those implementation cycles are bound by time, and their team members are also assigned, are dedicated to each of those run cycles. So here the triangle has been inverted. Here your team and your time are fixed. You can't change those for those run cycles, but your estimation can change on scope. So your scope is flexible, but your team and time are not, right? So Agile is a adaptive process. It can change because it is you can accept changes to your scope, so it adapts depending on what are the additional features you might need. It is driven by value rather than a plan. You can't really plan so far ahead because you're unsure of the scope, right? So and here you estimate on your on your scope, right? So these are inverse methodologies. So this is also, it depends on your organization and your project, what kind of methodology you would choose as an IT manager. But you have ways to do that. Now you have a lot of research and science that goes on in this, but an easier, or some of the important things that you should check or evaluate to see if you should have an agile or a waterfall way, you check the environment of the market or the project environment, check how much involvement the customer can give you, whatever innovation it is, what is the modularity of the work, and what is the impact of the errors that you make, right? So if your scope is if the scope is fixed, if your requirements are stable, if your customer is available only at certain important decision points, then you probably need a waterfall model. On the other hand, if your scope is very hazy, if your requirements can change often, if your customer is closely collaborating with you, then you can have an agile way of working. Similarly, if you're innovation type, for example, if you're doing something creative, then you're better off with an agile. If your project is very standard, if it can be done in say silos, then you don't need agile for that. Then when you go to modularity work, if you have to work with like if you can divide your work into smaller, quite small chunks, and if you need collaboration, then you need agile as probably a better vehicle. Otherwise, you can take a waterfall method. Then in agile, you are more receptive to change, so the impact of mistakes isn't as high. So if you have a project where you think that the impact of mistake is very expensive, then you would probably need a better scope. So you would need a waterfall method in that case. So you have some things you can use to choose. I mean, if you want a waterfall, if you want an agile way of working, so these can help you in that, right? So that's the two important delivery mechanisms. Now, another important thing is your estimation. Now, estimation, there are several ways in which you can estimate a project. This is one that I have used quite often. This, you just sort of break down your project into, I don't know, say use cases. So you have 3 use cases in this case, and then each use case has a certain number of features. Each feature has a task and subtask and so on. And then you go to the lowest level of the subtask, estimate each subtask, and you roll it up, and then you get an estimate for the entire project. So here, for example, if you go to use case 2, and then you have the 3rd feature, which has 2 tasks, and then your task 1 has 1 subtask, task 2 has 2, and then you make an estimate, and also who does it as well. So then you have the estimate, you have the person responsible as well, and then when you roll it up, you just add them up, and you get an overall estimate of a project. And here, the important thing is that don't make it a very detailed. Don't break it down too much. Don't go beyond, say, 5 or 6 levels, because then the estimate gets really small, and it's very hard to sort of actually like make an estimate for like half an hour. I mean, then it gets really difficult. So keep it to maybe 5 or 6 layers, and then you roll it up. And this is important because then you can use this as a document for your project plan. You enter this into a software. It will give you a project plan or a dashboard, and then you can manage your scope. You can manage your time. You can manage your cost and your resources with just one of these tools, right? So this is an interesting and important thing that you would need to know. Leadership and PMO, this might be relevant depending on what type of project you are leading. I mean, if you have team responsibilities, then you have to change your team leadership style depending on who is your who are the team members. So you might go from supporting them to delegating them to coaching them, depending on their seniority in the organization or in the team. Now, this is not an arrow. This is just that you should be fluid in this matrix. I'm talking about the thing on the right, right? So you can go from supporting, coaching, motivating, depending on how your team members react and what motivates them. So you change your style a little bit. And the PMO on the left, this is an organization that you're probably going to be part of as a project manager. So it will help you with your tools. It will help you with your planning process, your project management analytics and all that. So this is a supporting organization which is going to help you in your project management for your IT project. So these are things that you will probably be part of as a IT project manager. One inescapable part of all IT projects is risk and problems. Now you will have to plan for risk. And when you have a risk, you have to identify what it is. You have to prioritize that risk, categorize it. If it is, say, a financial risk, technical risk, it comes from HR or sales or whatever, and then you evaluate what is the exposure. Suppose if the risk happens, how much is it going to cost you, right? So that is something you do for every risk. And for each of those risks, you have to then make a plan. Are you going to avoid the risk? Are you going to control it, transfer it, monitor, accept it? Avoidance means that you won't take that path. So you avoid the risk. Controlling means that you're going to sort of mitigate it in some way. Transfer means you will give it to somebody else. So typically offshoring is a transfer of risk. Monitoring is you will revisit it every time and then see if it changes. Acceptance means that you will accept the risk, do nothing, take the risk and move on. So this is a plan that you would have to have in your as an IT project manager, right? Then you have problem management, which is similar to risk, but this is a certainty. It's already happened. In a risk, it is uncertainty. You don't know if it's going to happen. So this is almost the same, except that you have to solve it now once you encounter it. So you would have a problem, but you have to then find where it came from. So you have to do sort of a causal analysis, and it might come from these things like suppliers, surrounding skills, systems. So then you identify it again, categorize it, diagnose it, etc. So the process is the same as almost the same as risk management, but you have to do it because it has happened. In a risk, you are not sure if it's happening or not. It is you have to just plan for that. So that is uncertainty. Problem is certainty. It has happened, but it is almost the handling is almost the same, right? So this is another important thing that you would need to know. And metrics and reporting is probably my least favorite function as a manager, because it involves a lot of data collection, and you use that data to basically, the objective is to turn it into action. So you collect all sorts of things that are related to your project or your contract, and you use that for diagnostic as well as prognostic. So diagnosis and prognosis, yes. So you use it for forecasting, you use it for improvement, you use it for communication with the stakeholders, so on and so forth. So you collect all kinds of information, and then you use that as some kind of a dashboard, right? So this is you will collect information around timeliness, around your budget, around quality, effectiveness, and your people. So there's a lot of things that you can collect. So this is an important tool that you have that you will use as with all your stakeholders to see what kind of health your project is in. So it is a necessary thing to do, and it will also help you in your subsequent projects, because then the more data you collect, the easier it becomes to benchmark your subsequent work as well. So this is a very important necessary evil, I would say. So this has to be done as well. So turning data into action is another thing that this would help you to do. Now, I think my last few slides are for an actual project that I did. So this was a financial transformation that I had. This was 10 or 12 projects. So it was an entire group of projects that were delivering the same thing. So there were 12 IT projects under one umbrella. So I was in charge of that. So here we had to change from an old financial mainframe-based system to a new one, which was ported on the web and all that. It had all the fancy stuff. So here we analyzed the existing business model in terms of what was the quality, what was the innovation that they had, what was the offering that they were giving, and then we sort of analyzed it and then figure out what to do with it. So what was the new value proposition? What was the additional value that we were delivering in terms of what was the additional quality we had, what were the additional features that we had to produce, what were the cost parameters, etc., that we had. So we went from the business model to the value proposition, and the part in green was the system that we delivered. It was an innovation value delivery system, and the tools that we used were agile methods. We used some learning routines. We had a complete digital transformation, and we used some academic theory that we implemented into the practice. So this was at a very high level what we did with the project. And then I had the entire project planned. In blue, the horizontal one were the project phases. This is for the entire group of projects. It was the overall project plan. So these were the 4 phases that we had. We went from discovery to mapping, creation, to the adjustment, and then the vertical ones are the activities. So we defined the objectives, the activities, we did the estimation, and discovered the existing business model, made an overall governance around it, and had the actual innovation strategy implementation, how are we going to do it, how is it going to look, and then we had, of course, the agile project and digital transformation plans, and the final delivery with agile methods. And we also had incorporated a sort of a cultural change throughout the organization. So the objective was also to change the mindset within the organization to minimize your waste. So cutting all the clutter, additional processes which were not adding any value, constantly trying to iterate, improve, simplify, collaborate, and learn. So this was the objective also through the project, right? So this was a very high-level project management in a nutshell. And the desired outcomes that we actually achieved were things like modifiability, usability, predictability, supportability. So these were things that were a result of our project. So I'll finally say a few things that as a IT project manager, not only must you go for efficiency, you must also go for responsibility, or this is like a green responsibility. So efficiency means on time and within budget, of course, that is your basic job, but you must also find a simple and sustainable way of working. So you need both efficiency and responsibility. So if you take anything away from today, just remember that you need efficiency, which is what you have to do, but you have to find it in the most simple and sustainable way. So build simple processes, build sustainable processes on time and within budget. So these are the 2 most important things you would need as a IT project manager. I think that is my end of my slides. Yes, it is. So thank you for this. And if you have any questions, I'll be really happy to see if I can answer them. Okay, I have a question. I would like to ask about the most qualitative approach to deliver projects. What do you think? Which one is it? Do you think it is a good idea to change in between, let's say, waterfall and Scrum Burn during delivering a project? Okay, so thanks for this question. It's very interesting. Um, what I would say, what is the most qualitative approach to deliver a project is when you are not building or you are not driving a project purely based on your numbers or your data collected. You are building things also around, say, sustainability or around using your resources in the best way. You're also taking into account how your team is motivated. So it is not just purely based on data. So I think that is what quality means, that you are also searching for something that you can learn as well. I think that's what I would say. And changing in between waterfall, this is tough to say because it depends on what stage you are in your project. If you're in a waterfall that has been going on for a while, then it will be very hard to change. But if you're just started, then you have to see the other things as well. If you already have a scope which is well defined, then you don't need to change from waterfall to Scrum because it's not, it won't benefit you all that much then, because you already have your scope, you have your objective. So I think you should probably do it a little bit earlier in your project evaluation, whether you want a waterfall or a Scrum Burn. Okay, I hope that answers it. I have another question. Okay, there's another question. I would kindly ask you if you can share an example of a project plan for software project that can be shared, any documentation. Yeah, I can do that. I think if you can send an email, or I think that can be arranged. Okay, another question is, what Agile methodology did you use for the projects that you mentioned? Oops, I just scrolled it. Wait, how do you usually prevent scope creep? Yeah, I essentially used a mixture of Lean and Scrum because they were two very different I should say, paradigms that we had in those 12 projects. Some were affecting more engineering systems, so that had to be more towards Lean. The other one was purely software, so that was done more on Scrum. Preventing scope creep, in Agile, that's the advantage, that you don't have that much scope creep. You can always plan it in a subsequent run, or if not, then you can actually refuse it as well. You can execute that as a completely different project as well. So you have a lot of leeway allowed in Agile for adding on scope. But then again, you have to analyze. Is it reasonable addition that is required, right? So I think that's something that Agile, it's already inbuilt in Agile, some kind of a check that you can add. But you also have to obviously check beforehand. If it is completely irrational to add that, then don't. Yeah. Okay, then I'm currently doing a PMO intern and would like to develop my career in this path. Do you have any tips and tricks? Oh, this is going to be a whole different. I think if you could send an email, maybe I'll be able to answer that better. Okay, are there any other questions? I'm not sure if I've scrolled through. You can obviously ask or email me, or you can, I think, email Beetroot as well. I don't know if that's okay, but yeah, I think that is okay. Can you share your email? Yes, I think I have mentioned that. I'll just go to the first slide. Yeah, this is my information. So my email, LinkedIn, and my phone number is there, right? So you can send me an email with your questions or yeah, and I don't know if I've missed any question. I'm trying to scroll, but yeah, somebody else asked if I can share a project example. Yeah, I'll do that. If you can send me an email, I can probably give some real life slides, right? I'm sorry. Somebody asked? Can you share your information here in chat? Is this the contact information or? Well, just 1 second. I can do that. Yeah, somebody already did. Yeah, that's my email. So yeah, if you can email me, or you can even contact me through LinkedIn if you like. You'll have more information there as well about what I did and my past projects as well. Right. So does anybody have any? You still have I want to thank you for all the time. Okay. I think I've gone through all the questions that I can see. I apologize if I have missed anything, but you can always email me and I'll try my best to answer. And anybody else, if you have any questions after this, I'll be happy to answer those. So, I mean, I don't see any more questions. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. I was very happy to see so many people joined in. So that's very nice. And we'll stay in touch and see you guys someday. So good luck with your project management ambitions. So thank you very much.